Do you think Shanahan is a top 15 coach in the NFL, head coach?
Yeah, I would say so.
Do you think he's top 10?
I mean, I would have to say so. Like, he's put together a good team. He has a good coaching staff. He has good defense. He has good players. He's made it far. He's had a lot of success the last 4 years. But I have a tough time ranking him top 5 or putting him over guys who have won Super Bowl. I could rank him ahead of Mike McCarthy.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
he won a Super Bowl, but like, you suck. Sorry. You're not good.
So you probably have him in like that 8 to 10 range potentially.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And when people put him up higher than that, it's like, okay, like, based on what? You know, not something he's accomplished, something you think he's going to accomplish, a projection. And that's what I think with Kyle. I feel like he's the kind of people who love Kyle are the kind of people that maybe have a little chip on their shoulder, and they like to show you how much they know about football by showing you how much Kyle knows about football. And when they can explain Kyle's genius, what they're really doing is explaining their own genius because they understand it. When the rest of the world is like, man, this guy's a little inconsistent. I don't really think everything he does adds up. They're like, no, you just don't get it. Like, oh, but you do. Okay, thanks a lot. Because you call him on the phone and talk to him at night. So I just so understand when people say he's like the second best head coach in the league. Here's my thing with the Niners. I feel like I picked the Seahawks to win the division. I think the Seahawks are better than them. But at the same time, I think the Niners should be expected to win the Super Bowl. Like, and here's why.
Who do you think has a better roster? Coaches aside, scheme aside, all that. Just player for player, who has a better roster?
Let me explain. I can't answer it like that, but I'm going to answer your question. I feel like the 49ers roster is flawed.
Okay.
Like, if you add up all the talent, maybe on a scale, it has more than, but their roster is flawed. And here's what I mean. They really do a good job with a lot of quarterbacks when they're kept in a clean pocket. Like Jimmy, Brock, Trey. If they can just keep the pocket clean, the Niners are great. Like, those quarterbacks light it up. But they don't really care about doing that. They care more about their outside zone run game than keeping their quarterbacks upright. And they just chalk it up to bad luck. But like, pass protection is not something that is really important to them. And if it were, they would have addressed right tackle. The fact that they didn't address right tackle at all this year is it's the perfect microcosm of their flawed roster. They think it's a perfect roster. They think they have the best roster in the league. They think they have a top 3, 2, 1 coach in the league. And so what I say is, okay, if you're right, that your roster has no flaws, the way you build it is right, and your coach is that good, why have you not won a Super Bowl? What's taking you so long? Like, bad luck? You're going to tell me bad luck? Like, no, it doesn't make any sense. You should win it right now. But what I say is you have major flaws, and you're going to always be in the mix, but you can't keep your quarterback healthy. You don't value pass protection. Your team is always among the 10 most injured teams in the league. You overuse your starting running back every year and get him hurt. And you don't really manage the game that well either. If you had just thrown the flag on that 4th down in Philly, the whole game could have unfolded differently. So those are my issues with the 49ers. Then I look at Seattle, and like, yeah, they're an up-and-coming team, and they're really young, but I know Pete Carroll can put together a Super Bowl winning team because he's done it. He's done it. I don't know that Kyle can do that. And I'm looking at his formula, and I think it has problems.
It does seem like Seattle, for the most part, under Pete Carroll, has either overperformed, like Russell Wilson's rookie year, second year, whatever, and then Geno Smith last year, or they've lived up to expectation. Like when they had the Legion of Boom and they looked like the best team in the league, they ended up being the best team in the league. They lived up fully to expectation. And then the next year, it looked like they could do it again, and they were this close, and they lost to the Patriots. Now the play call there, you could definitely put on Carroll, right? Like,
no doubt,
that's a flaw
for sure.
Definitely should have called something different. I think we all agree there, but they do tend to live up to expectation. And so it is interesting because I think a lot of people that just go to bat crazy for Kyle and act like he's perfect certainly will also then say that the 49ers are the best team in the league and have the best roster. And then, but when they don't win again, it's not Kyle's fault. It's
that's what I'm saying. How can you say the roster is this good?
Whose fault is it?
If the roster is good and he's as good, then what's the problem, man? And like, I feel like when you put it to people like that really like Kyle, their brain explodes. They're like, well, that's not a fair question.
Yeah. Well, then they start looking at situation by situation.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Brock Purdy got hurt, and Jimmy wasn't any good, and then he wasn't the head coach in Atlanta, and it's always this and this and this and this,
right? Parsing and excuses. Like,
yeah.
okay. Yeah.
So I understand it. I think also, and you and I have had these conversations. That's why I wanted to get clarification, because we both also agree that Kyle does a lot of really good things. I personally had Kyle, I think 7th is a head coach, which I think was pretty fair.
That sounds
like you've got him close to that, 8 to 10 maybe. And I don't think that's unfair until you do win a Super Bowl. I don't, I think that's right.
And I think the thing
he
is,
should be.
If he were to win a Super Bowl, his ranking would skyrocket. And that just shows how much Super Bowls matter. They do matter.
Yes.
They really do.
He would blow past if you're iffy between him and Harbaugh, if you're iffy between him and Tomlin.
It would validate the last 4 years. Like he did. He really was on the doorstep. He really was about to do it. He had some bad luck and he needed some things to break his way, but he figured it out. Like, it would validate his whole career. Huge. One. Yeah. So let's see you do it, man. This year. It just takes one. Honestly, if he won the Super Bowl this year, it would be him, Andy Reid. I mean, you could even, people be saying like, yeah, what has Bill Belichick done recently, huh?
No, that's true. I mean, honestly, right now he might be ahead of Bill Belichick if he has a ring. In this very moment.
But until then, he ain't. Until then, he's nowhere near Bill Belichick. But that all could change in a year. That's
until then, you aren't.
Yeah, in your face, Kyle. But I'm the champ. Number 1 forever. No matter what. All right, let's see what else people have to say, and then we'll get out of here. We'll get up out of here. Rod Simmons, give a bold prediction this year, Niners passing game. Ayuk leads the team in catches and targets. Did he do that last year? Because he called himself the 4th option. I think he's even the number 1 option this year. Ayuk.
Okay. I think, and it's not going to all come from one quarterback. I don't think any quarterback, I'll give you 2. No quarterback throws for over 4,000 yards, but 3 receivers / tight ends go over 1,000.
I like that. Damian Jasso says, Grant, is this a run back of 2019 or is this a new team with something to prove? See, to me, 2019 was a new team with something to prove. No one expected that team to be great. And when they were like 8-0 and people were on ESPN and NFL Network were like pretenders. Like, ever since then, everyone's been all in on the Niners bandwagon. People don't want to make that mistake again. I kind of think the Niners would benefit from the media turning on them, being like, you know what? Frauds. That brings out the best in them for whatever reason. But
for sure,
people have been patting them on the back for like 3 years.
I will say the moment they got CMC and got rid of Jimmy, it's not the run it back squad anymore. It's not exactly that. It's different.
That's a better point. Jay says trade Kyle. Belichick hasn't been the same since Brady left. Need a franchise quarterback, and Kyle is clueless in that department. Draft Caleb Williams. Now that's a good point. Who cares about the virtues of a coach who can't find, develop, or protect a quarterback? Don't tell me what he does well. That's all you need to know.
Yeah, I mean, would we have the same thoughts about Belichick if Brady hadn't been there? Would we have the same thoughts about Walsh if he hadn't gotten Montana? And obviously they deserve credit for that. But it's hard to do. It's very hard to do. And those guys proved out that they could do it at least once.
It is
actually, Walsh did it multiple times, but at least once. And that's what makes your career. You're eventually, I mean, you're tied to a quarterback usually at some point. And Kyle hasn't had a quarterback to be tied to because he doesn't find the quarterback. That is a big issue.
And that's what he falls back on. His supporters fall back on. Like, okay, well, it's hard to find a quarterback. Yeah, That's why it's really important to find someone who can do it.
Okay, I'll say this. I believe in Kyle so much that I believe there's actually a strong possibility that in that scenario, if you, for that season, you had switched him and LaFleur and put Kyle on Green Bay in 2019, they might have been better than the 49ers. That's how good I think Kyle is. But Kyle needs the quarterback. And until he has that, it's not going to be enough to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion.
I'd like to see Kyle and Aaron Rodgers try to coexist. I think that would be funny as hell. But LaFleur to me came across as submissive. Like, hey man, whatever you want to do, you want to make me look stupid, you want to look at me and I'll just stand here like an idiot and you want to change the play, like I'll just stand here like an idiot. Like I'm just happy to have you on my team. Like Kyle's not that kind of guy. Like I'd love to see Aaron Rodgers change the play on Kyle. I would love to see that. Matthew Sanders says, "Thank you guys. Think you guys are vastly overrating how happy Seattle fans are with Carroll. He was on the outs and mortgaged the team when Geno saved it. He was teetering." Yeah, the way I looked at it was half the fan base was on Russell Wilson's side, half the fan base was on Pete Carroll's side. Pete Carroll ended up being right, and now I think that fan base is all back in lockstep. What do you think?
I mean, he put everything on the line. What more do you want from him? If his back was against the wall, he didn't just sit back and let things happen to him like, well, my back's already against the wall, I can't send out Russell Wilson. No, he's like, I'm doubling down. If my back's against the wall, I'm going to make something happen. And he did, and he was right. And so now he's fine. So I don't know. I mean, that to me is a sign of a really good head coach.
Official BNA Music 88 says, "You found Jesse. I thought he went looking for the Titanic."
Oh, man.
Dude, I really been avoiding that story. It gives me anxiety. Just thinking.
I know. I can't.
Doesn't it feel
I didn't
like,
even
like
know
the whole
about it
world
until
has
my
anxiety
wife
about
brought
it?
it up.
Oh, God, just the worst.
It's awful.
Awful. Wave 9 says Seattle weakness is D-line, ours is O-line.
Oh, that's interesting.
But they added some players to their D-line this year. They got Draymond Jones. He's a really good player. I mean, Fangio developed him.
They are better, but I don't think it's a strength still. Like the 49ers offensive line might be a little bit better than last year, but it's still not necessarily a strength, right?
Yeah, they build front back to front. You're right. Timothy Glander says, "What would it take to truly humble Kyle for growth?" That ship has sailed. That ship has sailed. Dude, this dude is like 43, 44 years old. He probably has $100 million. It's over. It's over, man. He's got all the national media, all the local media saying he's the genius, best coach. Oh, he's like, Grant doesn't think I'm that great. You know what? I'm going to prove Grant wrong. He doesn't care. He's got a never-ending course of people telling him that he's the greatest right now, including his boss, which is the most important thing. So,
that's the hard part, though. When you get somebody with those personality types that maybe you don't vibe with, that's what makes them great. And that's also can be their downfall. And it's just like, how do you capitalize on it being their strengths and go out and win the whole thing? That's what you've got to figure out. That's the hard part.
Papa Phil says we've done nothing to improve our offensive line. Shake my head. How will we win in the playoffs? Trey Arias stand up. It's just crazy. Like, you look at Purdy's numbers from a clean pocket, they're off the charts. And it's not because he's great, but like, I mean, the design's good, the players are good. Like, if you could just block it up, the offense would be great, but it's not an emphasis. Brother Bob says, been a fan since Walsh, Montana, Eddie D days, when it was Super Bowl or bust. Being competitive but losing is still losing. If Kyle wins a Super Bowl, then he's elite. Agree.
That's
I put out a poll today on Twitter. Who's a better head coach, Marv Levy or George Seifert? And I feel like that
Seifert.
Yeah, that's what I said. But my cousin said Marv Levy, and a lot of Jackhammer said Marv Levy, and I feel like it kind of reveals where you stand on the debate. Like, what's more important? Being in the mix, being in 4 consecutive Super Bowls and not winning any of them, or actually winning some?
Yeah.
I know. I want guys who finish the job. I don't want to hear the excuse. Vincent Campo says, Jesse, you are depressing me 2 days in a row, Ellen. Well, let's end right there. Thank you very much, Vincent.